Hello students, my name is Dr. Swarnava Roy. So today I will be giving a short lecture on the human heart, which is a very important topic of the class 10 CBC chapter life process. In general, human heart is an important topic for any class. Now, so what we will study or learn in human heart is the basic the concept and the structures and the features of the human heart. We learn about what is double circulation, we learn about blood pressure, and we learn about the conducting fibers, which are the SA node, AV node, bundle of His, how the electrical impulses are conducted in the human heart. So let's begin. Now, what is heart? The heart is it's a muscular organ. The heart is made up of cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles are branched shape muscles, and we'll see that. So it's a muscular organ, and we know the heart is always beating right from the time the embryo is formed. Okay, we see the beating of the heart, and it keeps on going and going till a human being lives his or her life. The heart shape is like a feast, like if you make a feast of your hand. Okay, so whatever feast size you will have, that will be, or that is the shape of the human heart. So I'm making a feast like this, so this is the shape, this is the size of my heart, right? So based on person to person, the size of this feast will change, so as the size of the heart will change. If you look at that, it contracts on a regular manner, and continuously it pumps blood throughout the body. So the main job of the heart is pumping the blood throughout the body. In a male, you can see the heart measures 300 grams, and in a female it measures 250 grams. And if you look at the human heart, it is actually present. So let's look at this picture. So this is the heart, which is positioned between the two lungs. So this is one lung, and this is the another lung, right? So when you look at this thing, so this is basically the right lung, this is the left lung. So in between we have the heart, and the heart is present in a kind of slanted position, and as you can see that it is pointing towards the left side, right? On a slanting position, it is pointing towards the left side. And if you can see that this is called this is the base of the heart, this is the apex of the heart. So the apex is tilted towards the left side. Okay, so this is the apex of the heart, and this is the base of the heart. Now, just below the heart is this muscular, you can say, organ, which is called the diaphragm, and the diaphragm is in a relaxed state. The diaphragm is dome shaped. Whenever the diaphragm contracts, it becomes straight, and the diaphragm is very, very important for the purpose of respiration. For inspiration, expiration, the diaphragm plays a very important role. Now, moving forward, the heart is basically present inside a cage, bony cage, and this bony cage is called the rib cage. Now, the reason the heart is inside the bony cage is because the rib cage is providing protection to the heart, right? As you can see that this is the rib cage, right? And the heart is inside this rib cage, and it is providing protection. Can you imagine that if the rib cage would not have been present, what would have happened, right? So if so many times we have fallen while we are playing, right? While we are running, so many times we have fallen on the floor, on the ground. Okay, can you imagine if the heart was not present inside this bony cage, what would have happened? The heart would have collapsed. We could have caused a grave damage to the heart. We would have lost our life, right? So this bony cage is saving us, is protecting our heart, right, all the time from any kind of damage. Now, very, very important thing we need to know about the heart is the presence of the different layers of the heart. So if you look at this picture, Now, the heart is basically inside a bag, right? So, if you think about when you get all these orders from Amazon or Flipkart, what do you see? They are inside. Let's say if there is some kind of a very precious kind of item you have ordered, right? Any kaach ka item, right? Any kind of glass based item. So it is present inside a bubble wrap, right? So the same way, you can see the heart is present inside a bag, right? You can see we can basically tear the bag, right? We can tear the bag. So this outer covering which surrounds the heart, it's called the pericardium, right? It is called the pericardium. Now, so this pericardium or the outside layer or outside bag within which the heart is present, this pericardium is basically made up of two layers. There are two layers. We can see this is the outer pericardial layer, this is the inner pericardial layer. Can you see that? Now, this between the two pericardial layers, there is a space which is filled with a pericardial fluid, right? There is a space which is filled with the pericardial fluid. So the heart is always contracting, relaxing, right? It is doing that. So there is always friction happening between the two layers, right? So this pericardial fluid, it acts like a lubricant, right? It is acting like a lubricant, which is kind of reducing the friction, and also this pericardial fluid, it keeps the heart moist, right? Because a heart should not be dry, so it keeps the heart moist. It actually reduces friction. It acts like a shock absorber. So all these kind of benefits are there, so that the heart can keep beating. So again, this is a very nice zoomed picture. You can see that we have zoomed this part, and you can see this is the outer pericardial layer, this is the inner pericardial layer. In between we have the pericardial space, which is filled with the pericardial cavity, which is filled with the pericardial fluid. Now, this bulk of the heart, the major part of the heart, as you can see here, this is the major bulk of the heart, is called the myocardium. And then there is a very thin shiny layer which is the inside of the heart, which is called the endocardium. So we have the outside pericardium, then we have the myocardium, and inside we have the endocardium. So this is what the heart is made up of. Now this myocardium, what I'm talking about, this myocardium is made up of cardiac muscles, which is basically like that, which is basically branched muscles. So cardiac muscle is a branch muscle. It is the only branched muscle in the human body. It is elongated. So this is basically a cardiac fiber, cardiac muscle fiber. We call it fiber because it is elongated. We call it muscle fiber, right? It's actually a cell. It is actually a cell. Normally when we think about cell, we think about a round structure or a rectangular structure. So the cardiac muscle cell is like a fiber. It is elongated. It is branched, okay? It has a single nucleus, and it has these ends which are called the intercalated disc. So if I can draw here intercalated disc, and then right like that, and there we have nucleus, okay, and then we have the myofibrils, okay. So this is a cardiac muscle fiber or cardiac muscle cell, okay, cardiac muscle cell, which is present in the myocardium part of the heart. Moving forward, so again, this is basically a picture of a cardiac muscle, and cardiac muscles are filled with lots of mitochondria. Has to be, because all the time it is beating, and we know mitochondria is the powerhouse of a cell, which provides with ATP, the adenosine triphosphate, which is basically the energy currency. Okay, so it's a common logic to think that the heart will have lots of mitochondria, right? So this is the cardiac muscle cell. Now we learn about the different kind of parts of the heart. So a best way is to look at a picture. So this is the heart which has been cut wide open, right? It's a vertical cut, and we can see the heart is made up of basically it's a four-chambered heart, right? The human heart is four-chambered heart, or the mammalian heart is also four-chambered heart. And what we can see is that the upper chamber is thin-walled. We call them atrium. So we have the right atrium, left atrium. Whenever you see any kind of anatomy picture in biology, right, any anatomical picture, always think of a patient lying like that, and you're looking from the top, right? Think of a patient lying on the floor and you're looking from the top. So basically this becomes my right side, this becomes my left side. Okay, so the same way, this is the right side, this is the left side. So the upper thin wall is called the atrium, and the lower thick wall, can you see the thick wall? The thick wall is called the ventricle. So basically there are four chambers, right? We have the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle, and you can see that there is the two sides, the right side and the left side, they are divided by a septum, right? This is called the atrial septum, and this is called the ventricular septum. So atrial septum, ventricular septum. So there is a division or a wall which is called the septum. The septum divides the heart into the right side and the left side. You can see that the right side is blue colored because of the fact that the right side deals with the deoxygenated blood. That means the blood having higher proportion of carbon dioxide. The right side deals with oxygenated blood. That means having higher proportion of oxygen, right? So it is an oxygenated blood, so it is represented as red, and you can see this is the right side, which is actually deoxygenated blood. That means it has higher proportion of carbon dioxide. That's why it is represented as blue. Now, moving forward, if you look at the, sorry, this is actually the actual heart, the human heart. This is the right atrium, right ventricle, and this is the left ventricle and the left atrium. We will get into this picture, which is a much nice representation. So we see that between the right atrium and right ventricle, the blood actually flows from the right atrium to the right ventricle, right? This flow is unidirectional. This is unidirectional. That means that is one way, the blood flows one way. The blood always flows from the right ventricle, right atrium to the right ventricle, right? It never flows from the right ventricle back to the right atrium. So it's a unidirectional flow, and this unidirectional flow is maintained by a valve, right? Valves are structures which maintain a unidirectional flow. That means they do not allow the blood to come back to the atrium. Okay. If that happens, that is called a medical term called regurgitation, right? That is not a good thing. In a normal healthy heart, blood should never come back to the atrium. So valves make certain that they open only from top to bottom. They only open on one side, and the blood is flowing from the top to the bottom. Okay. So this valve which is present between the right atrium and the right ventricle, it is called the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid because there are three cusps. Okay, I'll show you a picture of a horizontal cross section of a heart, and you can see what I mean by a cusp. So there are three cusps, so it is called tricuspid valve. On the left side of the heart, that is between the left atrium and the left ventricle, there is the bicuspid valve. That is, bi means there are two cusps. It is also called the mitral valve. So mitral valve or the bicuspid valve on the left side of the heart between the left atria and the left ventricle, and the tricuspid valve is on the right side between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Also, we can see that from the right ventricle there is this very big artery which is called the pulmonary artery. Now, what is an artery? An artery is a vessel. It's a blood vessel which carries blood away from the heart. Very, very important. So artery is something. So artery, always the definition of artery is something which carries blood away from the heart, right, from the heart. And a vein is something which always brings blood towards the heart. So artery always carries blood away from the heart. So this is the pulmonary artery, and you can see how the pulmonary artery is basically taking the deoxygenated blood from the left ventricle all the way to the pulmonary, that means the lungs, right? So basically the pulmonary artery comes here and it bifurcates into two. So it bifurcates from here. So here it is bifurcating one. So one is going to one lungs and the other is going to another lungs, right? So this is the right lungs and this is the left lungs. Okay, so it's carrying the deoxygenated blood to the lungs where there will be gaseous exchange in the alveoli of the lungs where this blood will be enriched with the inhaled oxygen, right? So this oxygen enriched blood will come back to the heart through the pulmonary vein. So the pulmonary vein, it will come back from the lungs back to the left atria. So if I can draw another picture, you can see from here the pulmonary vein, it comes from both the lungs and it joins to form the pulmonary vein and it enters the left atria. So the oxygenated blood comes back to the left atria. Now, if you look at so basically this is the pulmonary artery, and you can see the base of the pulmonary artery, it has a valve which is called the semi-lunar valve, or it is also called the pulmonary valve. Again, the valve opens only on one side, allowing unidirectional flow of blood, okay, from the from the right ventricle to the pulmonary artery. It's called semi-lunar. Why? Because it looks like lunar. That means it looks like half moon shaped. Okay. So if you look at this thing, this is the pulmonary artery, and you see there are three moon shaped, right? Like half moon shaped. Okay, like half moon, right? Like half moon shaped. That's why it is called semi-lunar. Lunar means moon. Semi-lunar valve. Okay, so now let's basically look at the cross section of the heart. If you look at the heart cross section, so you see this between the right atria and the right ventricle, we have the tricuspid valve, and I say this is one cusp, this is the second cusp, this is the third cusp, right? So we call it tricuspid. Again, between the left atria and the left ventricle, we have the bicuspid or the mitral valve. Again, यहाँ पे you can see this is one cusp, this is another cusp, right? If you look at the semilunar valves, they are also technically tricuspid because there are three cusps, right? But they look like kind of half moon shaped. That's why they call semilunar or aortic valve. And again, you see between the left ventricle and from the left ventricle emerges the aorta, the biggest artery, aorta, from the left ventricle, and it carries the oxygenated blood through the rest of the body. So this is the aortic valve, this is the pulmonary valve, okay? The pulmonary valve is carrying the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the rest of the body, and we have the aortic valve carrying the oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the rest of the body. So let's go back and see the aortic valve. So this is the aortic valve, and this aortic valve is emerging from the left ventricle and carrying the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. Now, we will learn a little bit of the circulation of how the whole cardiac cycle takes place, or how the flow of the blood takes place in the human heart. So now, if I draw this, you see this is the heart. This is the human heart, right? And we have here the superior vena cava, and this is the inferior vena cava. So we call the SVC and the IVC. So these are the two veins which are bringing the deoxygenated blood from the rest of the body. So the inferior vena cava is bringing the DO2 or the deoxygenated blood from the legs, from the abdomen, right? And it is dumping on the right atria. Okay, and this is the superior one, vena cava, which is bringing the DO2 from the neck and the head, right? And it is dumping on the right atrium. From the right atrium, the blood is going to the right ventricle, right? From the right ventricle, as I've said, comes out the pulmonary artery, right? And the pulmonary artery basically goes to the two lungs. You see, there are two lungs. This is the right lungs. This is the left lungs. So the pulmonary artery takes the deoxygenated blood to the two lungs, right? And from the lungs, you see there is the two veins. These are coming and they're forming the pulmonary vein, which is bringing the oxygenated blood back to the left atria, to the left atrium, right? And from the left atrium, the blood is going to the left ventricle, right? And from the left ventricle, there is the aorta, which is the biggest artery, and the aorta forms an arch like that, and then it comes below like this, okay, distributing the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body, right? And also from the aorta, you can see there is this kind of an artery emerging, which is going to the upper part of the body, to the head, the neck, okay. We call this the carotid artery. Also, we have the cerebral artery, which are going to the head, and the carotid going to the neck, and the cerebral artery going to the brain, okay. So basically this is what is happening. So deoxygenated blood from the rest of the body is coming to the SVC, IVC, dumping into the right atrium. From right atrium, it goes to the right ventricle. From right ventricle, it goes to the lungs by the pulmonary artery. From the lungs, the veins are coming, becoming the pulmonary vein. The pulmonary vein enters the pulmonary vein. This is the pulmonary vein, which brings the oxygenated blood to the left atria. From the left atria, it goes to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the aorta, it actually distributes the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body, and also includes the head and the neck region, okay. So this is basically what the entire flow of the blood is. If I look at this picture, you can see, as I said, from the head and the neck, we have the superior vena cava. As you can see, from the head and the neck, and the superior vena cava, and from the thorax, abdomen, limb, the inferior vena cava dumping into the right atria. Also, one very, very important thing, the heart is providing blood to the whole body, right? But who gives the blood to the heart? Because heart also needs oxygen, right? So there is an artery called coronary artery. Coronary artery is the artery which provides oxygenated blood to the heart, right? So coronary artery, it takes blood away from heart and then provides the heart, and coronary vein takes away all the deoxygenated blood and brings it back to the right atrium. So you can see that how from the heart walls, the coronary vein, right, it bringing the deoxygenated blood, and it is actually dumping it into the right atrium. From the right atrium, the tricuspid valve opens, and then it goes to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the pulmonary artery. Through the pulmonary artery, the deoxygenated blood is going to the lungs. From the lungs, the oxygenated blood, okay, there is gaseous exchange happening in the alveoli of the lungs, okay, and the oxygenated blood is coming to the left atria via the pulmonary vein, right? And then from the left atria, the mitral valves or the bicuspid valves are opening, and the blood is going to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the heart is contracting, which is called the systole, right? And then the blood is getting inside, to the blood is being distributed to the rest of the body. What kind of blood? Oxygenated blood, right? Oxygenated blood is getting distributed to the rest of the body via the aorta, via the aorta. The aorta comes like this, and then it arches, which is called the aortal arch, right? The aortal arch, it goes down and supplies to the abdomen part, and then also there is actually the carotid artery going to the neck, and there is the cerebral artery going to the head. Also there is the coronary artery which is supplying the heart, right? So that is all about the circulation of the heart. Now, how do we measure the blood pressure? Now, what we know is that the heart is, what is the heartbeat? First we need to know. Heartbeat is the systole, that is contraction and relaxation. So one contraction and one relaxation is called a heartbeat, right? So one contraction, one relaxation, that's one heartbeat. One contraction, another relaxation, that's called another heartbeat. So systole, diastole. Contraction is called systole, relaxation is called diastole. Systole, diastole, systole, diastole, okay? So that is called a heartbeat, right? So contraction, relaxation is one heartbeat. So like that, in a minute, 72 times the heart beats, right? So we see that in a minute the heart is beating for 72 times. Now when the heart is, so we need to know what is the blood pressure, right? So what is blood pressure? We need to know. So we have the systolic pressure and we have the diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure is when the heart is contracting, that's the systolic pressure, and when the heart is relaxing, it's called the diastolic pressure. So what does exactly it means? So if I again draw the heart, so this is basically the heart, and this is the aorta. This is the aorta, right? This is the aorta. Now this is the left ventricle, L ventricle. When the heart is contracting, when there is in a systole, right? When the heart is in the systole state, that means the heart is contracting. When the heart is contracting, right? The blood is gushing and the blood is hitting the walls of the aorta, right? So blood is gushing and hitting the walls of the aorta. So the systolic pressure is felt on the wall of the aorta when the heart is in systole or in the contraction phase, okay? So the pressure here in the wall of the aorta is called the systolic blood pressure. Normal systolic blood pressure, normal in a normal human being, right? Healthy human being, the systolic blood pressure is how much? It is measured in millimeter of mercury. So 120 millimeter of mercury. That's a systolic blood pressure, okay? Right? When the heart is contracting, when the left ventricle is contracting, the blood is gushing out and hitting the wall of the aorta. That's called the systolic blood pressure. Now, when the heart is relaxing, the pressure which is felt in the wall of the aorta is called the diastolic. So we have normal, diastolic, BP or blood pressure is 80 millimeter of mercury, right? So we write it as 120 by 80 mm of Ag means mercury. That is the normal blood pressure. Now, people who actually have higher blood pressure, that means if you measure your blood pressure by what? By using a machine called sphygmomanometer, right? Sphygmomanometer. Now, nowadays you can see all these digital, if you go to medical shops, you could get all these digital blood pressure monitor, okay? But in olden days, doctors would use sphygmomanometer. Also nowadays, a lot of doctors, they use sphygmomanometer. You can get an accurate reading with a sphygmomanometer. But as I said, normal people who are not doctors, they can also measure the blood pressure by just walking to any kind of pharmacy and they sell all these kind of digital blood pressure monitor. Anyway, so there if you are showing consistent high blood pressure, that means instead of 120, this is called the systolic blood pressure. If your systolic blood pressure is always coming 150 and up, and your diastolic blood pressure is coming 90 and up, that means you have hypertension, right? That means you have hypertension. Why? What is hypertension? Basically, if your artery aorta wall is filled with plaque. It's called plaque, right? That means different kinds of cholesterol and different kinds of triglycerides. Okay, if basically the lumen or the space of your aorta becomes small because you have excessive fat in the body, right? So basically it's like a pipe, right? The pipe diameter is very small because of plaque formation or because of cholesterol formation. Then the heart has to put a lot of pressure to actually pump the blood. So that increases the systolic pressure and the diastolic pressure. That's called a person has hypertension or high blood pressure. Okay, right? So that's the clinical situation. Again, this is basically the sphygmomanometer, which is used to measure the blood pressure of a human being. Now, the blood pressure is measured in the in the brachial artery. This is called the brachial artery. Okay, by using the sphygmomanometer. Now, one thing we need to understand, there are two kinds of circulation. One, this is called the double circulation. Again, double circulation is very important from the CBC point of view. What is double circulation? Double circulation means there are two types of circulation. That means in the human heart, blood enters two times, right? So we have the pulmonary circulation, which is between the heart and the lungs, and then we have the systemic circulation which is between the heart and the rest of the body, right? So the heart is the common factor, right? So we have circulation between the heart and the lungs, which is called the pulmonary circulation, and then we have the systemic circulation between the heart and the rest of the body. So you see that this is how the right atria is receiving the blood via the vena cava, the deoxygenated blood, right? And then it is passing it to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the pulmonary artery is taking the blood to the lungs, where gaseous exchange is taking place in the alveoli, right? We are inhaling the oxygen-rich air, and then what is happening that this is basically, you see the in the alveoli, the capillaries, and then the oxygenated blood is coming back to the heart, to the left atria via the pulmonary vein, right? And then from the left atria, it is going into the left ventricle via the bicuspid or the mitral valve, right? And then from the left ventricle, again, because of the systole or the contraction, the blood is entering the aorta, and through the aorta, it is getting channelized to the rest of the body, right? As I said, it either goes from the aortal arch to the lower part of the lower extremity of the body, to the abdomen, to the stomach, to the intestine, or through the cardiac artery, it is going to the neck region, the cerebral artery going to the head region, coronary artery going to the heart, right? And then you see then the gaseous exchange taking place at the tissue level, and again the veins, the venules and the veins. Okay, so you see arterioles forming capillaries, and then venules forming veins, and veins joining to form the vena cava, and they're again dumping the blood into the right atrium. So this is the double circulation. The heart and the lungs called the pulmonary circulation, heart and the rest of the body called the systemic circulation. Right? Very important. Now, finally, we'll talk about the pacemakers of the heart. Now, sometimes, the heart is autorhythmic organ. That means the heart doesn't need a nervous stimulus for beating. The heart has conducting muscles. What muscles they have? They have conducting muscles, and the heart also has contracting muscles. Conducting muscles, contracting muscles are the cardiac muscles. Contracting muscles are the cardiac muscles. Okay, conducting muscles are the muscles which generate electricity, right? So conducting muscles are the sinoatrial node, which is present at the tip of the right atria. You see, this is called a conducting muscle. So conducting means it can generate electricity, right? It's called the sinoatrial node. And you see, as the electricity is generated, it is then transmitted through the contracting muscles, which is the cardiac muscles, and then it is passed, you see, from the right atria to the left atria, how the signal or the electrical impulse is being transmitted. Okay, and this electrical impulse causes the atrium to contract, you see, because of this impulse. And then from the sinoatrial node, the electrical impulse goes to the AV node, right? It is called the atrioventricular node or the AV node. Now, at the AV node, there is a little bit of delay because the atria is contracting, right? Now, there should be a small gap between the atrial contraction and the ventricular contraction, right? If the atria and the ventricle they contract at the same time, it will call fibrillation. It will call fibrillation. So if the heart, both the atria and the ventricle together they are contracting, then the heart will not be able to pump properly, right? So that means that as the electrical impulse is coming or transmitting from the atria, there is a small gap which is called the AV nodal delay. It's called the AV nodal delay. There's a little bit of delay. Heart allows the atria to contract, blood to come to the ventricle, and then the ventricles contract. Okay, so this is called the AV nodal delay as the electrical impulse goes to the AV node. From the AV node, look, it goes through the bundle of His. It's called the bundle of His, right? And then finally it spreads into the rest of the heart muscles through the Purkinje fibers. Okay, so here is the bundle of His, which is present at the septum of the ventricle, and then we have the Purkinje fibers through which the entire electrical impulse spreads through the every corner of the heart. Now, sometimes this SA node, for some people, it doesn't work, it stops working. So, for those people, we install a thing called pacemaker, right? On the chest muscle, and in the chest, there is a pacemaker which is installed, okay, which is a battery, and the chest, this pacemaker basically helps. So pacemaker is a replacement of the SA node, right? When the SA node doesn't work, then we use an artificial pacemaker which causes the pace of the heart, which helps the heart to beat, which basically sends the electrical impulse, right? So SA node is sending the electrical impulse. So the pacemaker is an artificial device, battery operated device which sends the electrical impulse to the heart, so the heart can contract. Now this SA node, it is implanted in the chest region under the skin, right? And then it has these leads, right? These things are called the leads which send the electrical impulse to the heart, and it helps the heart to beat, right? Nowadays, SA nodes can be also remotely controlled. Okay, so a lot of, even through your smartphone, you can control the the pacemakers. Okay, so a lot of sophisticated pacemakers have come now. So as I said, the heart beats like 68 to 72 times in a minute. A heartbeat means a contraction and relaxation comprises of a heartbeat, right? So a healthy heartbeat is 68 to 72 times. Obviously, if I'm running, okay, then the heartbeat increases, right? And also electrocardiogram or ECG provides information about the heartbeat. When we have some problems, we go to the hospital and the doctors, they perform an ECG, and that gives a kind of graphical representation. It tells us if there is any mistake, right? We know what is a healthy curve looks like. We compare with the healthy curve with the heart graphs we are getting, and if there is a defect, the doctor can tell by looking at the ECG or the electrocardiogram if there is any problem in the heart. Okay, so I think that is all we have in this lecture, this short lecture. I hope this lecture has been informative for students. So again, one more time, I'm Dr. Sean Oberoi. Bye-bye and wish you all the best. Bye.